Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where the plot thickens. Yes, Shang Chi did boffo box office this weekend, like real boffo, easily setting a new Labor Day weekend record, even outside the pandemic. Although, a movie this big has never opened on a Labor Day weekend, but you can bet they will from now on. This is like when Kingsman and Deadpool turned Valentine's Day into a blockbuster weekend. There will be big movies on Labor Day weekend from now on. Another release date weekend is born. But yet we now have some new questions about how to best release movies during the next few months. It's still not a slam dunk. Let's discuss. All right, so I've got a little tea mixed in here for you and everything. Now, first off, Marvel has once again proven it's the most powerful brand in Hollywood, which I know will annoy some of you, but these are cold hard facts at this point. These are family films that appeal to adults as well, with lots of action and VFX, which many people feel makes them theater worthy. And they tell one long story that billions of people, well, maybe not billions, but billions of dollars worth outside of a pandemic, but a lot of people, they're invested in these stories at this point. And you can be a hardcore Marvel fan, as many of us are, but here's the beauty of it. You can also be a casual one. And I think what particularly helps Shang-Chi is it's a movie that requires no other knowledge of the MCU, as it's a starting point for that character. You can go in blind and just have a fantastic time. On that note, Shang-Chi is simply a fantastic film. A cinema score and a 98% Rotten Tomatoes audience score. It was 99 for a little bit there. Who messed it up? But that's incredible. One of the best movies that Marvel has ever made, as I told you. Top tier Marvel. And with everyone tiring of the pandemic and wanting to enjoy the holiday weekend, suddenly, here was a movie that was a guaranteed good time and a chance to feel normal, if just for a few hours. Remember, we've been saying these pandemic movies are only medium? Well, this is fantastic. And as I said in my review, when I watched Shang-Chi in the theater for the press screening, it was the only film I've seen so far during the pandemic that made me feel like it wasn't the pandemic. A Quiet Place 2 was really good, but that's a dystopian, apocalyptic situation. So we reminded you a lot of the pandemic. This was it was escapism at its finest. Oh, amazing. And once again, after Texas and the South helped movies early on in the pandemic, they became the predominant movie-going cities in the United States, the coasts dominated once again, as 8 of the top 10 theaters were in New York City and Los Angeles. The other ones were in San Francisco and Orlando for Disney Springs' theater. And in New York City, there's currently a vaccine mandate. How did you feel going to the theater? Did you feel comfortable? I know some of you felt it was a little more crowded than you would have liked, but I know a lot of you went to see it in theaters this weekend. Some of you have plans to go either again or when it gets a little less crowded. I'm going to see it this week, hopefully in a very empty theater. And the Asian audience, like with Crazy Rich Asians back in 2018, showed up big time. They showed up, kicking off the weekend at 23%. That's very high for the Asian demographic in the overall mix. And they settled at around 18% by the end of the holiday weekend, as Shang-Chi has 4 quadrant appeal. Not only once again underscoring the strength of the Marvel brand, but it's also very important to see after the horrible waves of Asian discrimination earlier on in the pandemic. Those were appalling. And so that everyone is excited about the MCU's first Asian superhero. Everyone's excited. And have fantastic supporting characters here and behind the camera talent. Well, that is as important as Black Panther's global appeal. It's fantastic. We love to see it. So why is this an open and shut case that the box office is back and every movie going forward should be theaters only? Well, I'll tell you. So despite no digital day and date option, Shang-Chi did not top Black Widow. Its 3-day is even a little less, and its 4-day is actually about the same, with Shang-Chi benefiting from being a holiday weekend, so I think that's why it might be a scooch higher. But it only took Black Widow 1 additional day to get there. So it stands to reason, I would argue this, that Disney lost the additional $60 million that Black Widow made its opening weekend on Disney+. Yes, Shang-Chi's opening actually helps Disney in their lawsuit with Scarlett Johansson, because making Shang-Chi theaters only did not result in a bigger box office. She can't point to it and say, see, although part of her argument is that Black Widow shouldn't have opened at all, which I think is a bad argument because force majeure, they held it for a year. hoping for a better point. And they found a very good point, actually. So far, still the best window during the pandemic. But anyway, Disney can point out that she made even more money thanks to their day-and-date release strategy. Remember, Black Widow, as of a few weeks ago, when Disney made the information public, had made $125 million on Disney Plus Premier Access. It's still on Premier Access. I think it actually comes off relatively soon, but it's still making money. Shang-Chi's audience was overwhelmingly younger in male, 62% male, 18 to 34, 59%. And so I think Disney, this is how I would look at this, and I think Disney will too. I think Disney will look to see what Shang-Chi's second and third weekend holds are like. Is that $60 million from Disney Plus going to pop up later on in the run? I think it'll have a better second weekend hold than Black Widow because it's a better film. But how strong will the hold be? It opens so big, I don't think it'll drop around. I think it might still drop around something about 50%, which is typical for a blockbuster, by the way. But I think after they see the second, we have to all see the second and third weekend holds, and then Disney will decide if Eternals should be theaters only or day and date on Disney Plus. Because again, so far the audience isn't any bigger by going theaters only, and they're seemingly leaving money on the digital table. Especially it's going to be during the holidays. Why not? Why not give people the option, at least through the end of 2021? Because clearly Black Widow proved that even with the digital option, many people are still willing to go to the theater. As Disney has also proven with Free Guy and Jungle Cruise. Their movies are doing great. Would theater owners be miffed if they offered Eternals on Disney Plus? They probably would, but when has Disney ever cared about that? Also, don't forget that the international market is still a problem. You can't just make these decisions based on the domestic market because the international market is where Hollywood blockbusters make most of their money. 60 to 70% of all blockbuster movies' box office comes from overseas, sometimes even more. That's another reason you might see some films still move. The ones that are supposed to be billion-dollar flicks and the ones that might not get to $1 billion but still rely heavily on overseas box office. For instance, Tom Cruise movies consistently make over 70% from overseas, which was why Top Gun Maverick got pushed back again. And I don't think, even after Shang-Chi's opening weekend, I don't think Paramount regrets that. But especially because they're getting their choice dates. They're just shifting their own movies, though. Mission Impossible, in fact. Bond, which can't seem to afford to move anymore, will be an interesting test because those films are hugely reliant on overseas box office, close to 80% from overseas. So we'll get a good picture with that film's release in the beginning of October. Then as for Sony, the big question mark here. Many of you were delighted, and I can understand why, that they just moved Venom 2 up by 2 weeks to October 1st based on Shang-Chi's opening weekend. Probably because, though, I want to point out that it's a smaller film. Venom 2 was never going to make $1 billion. That's already run its full ad campaign. Plus, the first Venom made a lot of its money in China, and Sony must be confident they can secure a release date. They have a poster already, although not a release date on it. But that's been a stumbling block for other studios that haven't been able to get their movies into China. Also, the October 1st date makes Venom the next big movie after Shang-Chi, as the MCU movie has the entire month of September all to itself. Now, then Venom will have to go up against Bond the next week, and then Halloween Kills the week after that. But Venom can do a 45-day window or less before heading to PVOD. I think Venom is the kind of movie you can experiment with. Again, I think it seems a little smaller. I don't think it has it's not quite the slam dunk. Was the first movie an anomaly? Because I love the first Venom, but it did not have very high scores, critics or audience-wise. So why not test the waters with that? In fact, why not test them earlier by moving it up to October 1st? Also, as you can see, it's starting to get very crowded, and that's another thing for studios to consider. Are we ready for a crowded release schedule? Shang-Chi played every half hour at most multiplexes because there's no other movies to really play, besides other ones from Disney. No Way Home has only released one trailer, which they did so reluctantly because it leaked. And pushing back to Doctor Strange 2's release date is only a 3-month delay. And I gotta tell you, here's the tea. I hear that No Way Home could use the breathing room as its VFX work is under a major crunch. I also hear Doctor Strange 2 could maybe use some reshoots, a little tinkering there. Both films are very crowded, as we know, and I'm hearing they're having a bit of a tough time working out their stories. There's nothing wrong with that. Take a little extra time to get things just right. Just ask Rogue One. That was worth the delay. And I hear both these films, I think both those films would benefit from a little extra breathing room. As for the other films set to come out for the rest of this year, studios have to ask themselves and be honest about it, are they the same level of quality and four-quadrant crowd pleasers as Shang-Chi? Even Eternals is more cerebral a la Dune, which has buzz out of Venice, but only an okay Rotten Tomatoes score. Apparently Ghostbusters, which previewed at CinemaCon, and who knows if everybody was just on a high of getting to see Ghostbusters, but that's also from Sony, and that maybe it sounds like could be Shang-Chi level good with that kind of broad appeal, and that's set to come out for Thanksgiving. Maybe Sony wants to allow Ghostbusters to play all through the holiday season instead of crowding it with No Way Home, especially again if No Way Home could use the breathing room. Not just release date-wise, but creatively. But otherwise, why not push a few months, again, to spring 2022 for a number of these movies when things are supposed to be considerably better pandemic-wise? We'll see what happens. And again, Shang-Chi's second weekend drop is going to be crucial. How much money is actually here? For not only other movies, but also Disney's decision about doing any more day-and-date premiere access releases. A lot of you said you would have bought Shang-Chi this weekend if it had been available. Many more said that more than any other premiere access movie to date. So maybe Eternals could really clean up on premiere access. I'm sure Chloe Zhao will be like, I want it on a big screen, but it'll be available on big screens. And we'll see how many people feel that's worth, going, they'll have that choice. Just like Dune. Dune is releasing right around then on HBO Max as well. As for the rest of the top 10, Candyman escaped the dreaded 70-ish% drop of other blockbusters during the pandemic in its second weekend, so that's fantastic. Another great feather in the cap of Nia DaCosta and Jordan Peele. While Free Guy continues to astonish with amazing holds and closes in on joining the Pandemic Century Club. The club to be in right now. It's sad. We don't have a $1 billion club, but we do have the Century Club. And the top 10 was very front-loaded, as starting at number 8 for the 3-day, movies were bringing in less than $1 million. Oh my God. Suicide Squad is pretty much out of gas and around $160 million worldwide. That's it. Nowhere near other HBO Max, Warner Brothers day-and-date movies, The Conjuring 3 and Godzilla vs. Kong, and about tied with Space Jam 2. Now over on streaming, as always, let's start with Nielsen, which of course is from a couple weeks back. And here we're looking at the first week of August as we exit the month in real time. Disney Plus totally fell out of the top 10 shows. Yikes, allowing Netflix to take over. So Disney Plus, they could use more shows. I mean, it seems like a lot to us, right, who are watching it and covering it, but they need more. It's crazy to me, though, a number of Disney Plus shows, the non-Marvel and Star Wars ones, just cannot find a major audience for some reason. But anyway, this allowed Netflix to take over the complete top 10. But the week after this is when What If debuted, so we'll see how that did next week and where in the top 10 it started. I'm very curious to see how What If is doing in terms of the Nielsen top 10 because I think we can't get a clear picture of how strong it is like on Twitter. But Disney Plus continued to go head-to-head with Netflix over in movies, with Jungle Cruise continuing to do very well on Premiere Access. Because nobody's suing Disney over Jungle Cruise, we don't really know how it's doing numbers-wise there. But that's very strong. I don't think Black Widow even got, I think Black Widow the highest got was like number 3, so that's fantastic. Well, Raya looks to be Moana level popular. Hooray! Couldn't happen to a better movie. I love Raya. And Lin-Manuel Miranda had a much-needed win after In the Heights' disappointing box office with Vivo debuting at number 1 on Netflix. On Netflix this week, Clickbait, which just debuted last week, is still doing very well, while Money Heist came roaring back with a new season. Speaking of Twitter, I saw this trending a little bit on Twitter when it debuted, like on Friday. New movie Afterlife of the Party is also doing well, and for some reason, people are watching Green Lantern. What are you guys doing over there on Netflix? You're watching Twilight, you're watching Green Lantern. It's like Bizarro World over there. Then Manifest is still a streaming darling. Wow, no wonder Netflix picked it up. And September 11th movie Worth managed to get into the top 10. That is impressive for a small movie starring Michael Keaton and Stanley Tucci. It was Michael Keaton's birthday this weekend, so that's a nice birthday gift for him, everybody. And I actually watched it last night. And while it's excellent, I just want to give you a heads up. It's very, very depressing. It's a tough watch, but again, quite good and a very interesting story, which I think people should know about. I thought it was a very good movie, but it's emotionally wrenching. It's a real gut punch. On iTunes, once again, it's all recent theatrical releases doing great business with the very big crowd that's willing to wait for them. As for this coming week, Queenpins, you're not getting a breather. We got a lot of stuff this week. Although I'll be interested to see, Shang Chi, of course. The biggest question for Movie Math next week is what will be its second weekend drop. Queenpins hits theaters only, but in just 3 weeks it'll be available on Paramount+, while Malignant hits theaters and HBO Max, and the embargo is late Thursday. The press screening itself is actually on Thursday, so since it's so close to the release on HBO Max, I'm just going to watch it Friday morning and review it on Friday. The Card Counter, presented by Martin Scorsese from Focus Features, also hits theaters only. That movie is the crazy combination. Martin Scorsese is presenting it. It stars Oscar Isaac and Tiffany Haddish. Sounds pretty interesting. Are any of you planning to go see that? I think it would do great on streaming, quite frankly. But it'll get there eventually. Maybe really soon. We'll see. On streaming, Impeachment, American Crime Story starts on FX this Tuesday. So get ready for those things do very well. A lot of people tweet on that. I'm going to watch that. I like Ryan Murphy's American Crime Stories. While a new Doogie MD hits Disney Plus on Wednesday. Can this show get into the Nielsen rankings outside of Star Wars and and Marvel shows? And then over on Netflix on Friday, they've got the final season of Lucifer dropping. People love their Lucifer. Plus their movie of the week, Kate, an actioner starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I think's proven pretty good at action. So good for her. She's going to be starring in this one. And that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of Shang Chi's box office and what it potentially means for the rest of 2021's movie schedule? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.